All right, so we're here with a name everyone associated with Purdue will recognize, Robbie Hummel. Rob obviously has worked the last couple of years for ESPN and Big Ten Network and is starting to get comfortable in front of the camera. But here's his biggest test yet, this little 10 to 15-minute interview with me here at goldenblack.com. So kind of to start off, Rob, how are you doing, first of all, through all of this?
Well, aside from being nervous for my biggest test yet here, I'm good. I'm as good as you can be, and my family's healthy. My friends have been healthy, which is great. It's kind of a weird time for everybody, and I think you're probably starting to go a little bit stir crazy,
Right.
being in an apartment. But at the end of the day, you really can't complain a whole lot because there's a lot of people that are going through a lot worse stuff than what we're going through out here.
Right. Are you still in California?
Yes. Yep. I'm out in Los Angeles. So it's been a good weather city to quarantine in because at least you can go outside and go for walks. And now that it's kind of opened up a little bit, so we can go out and play tennis, or we can go play golf, or do some things outside. So I'm excited for that.
Right. Right. You guys are so used to playing basketball, to being around basketball. What have the last 3 months been like where there's no basketball?
It's so weird. It's why The Last Dance, I think, was such a unbelievable thing to have happen now, because it's like, what else are we doing? I watched last night on ESPN a replay of a game that I have probably watched 10 times, like, just because what else was I going to do? You know what I mean? And it was the same game, just different camera angles, but I watched it again. So it's been weird. I was really prepared to gear up and kind of make a push to the Olympics and do the whole 3-on-3 thing. And last year was really hard because we played in 21 countries last summer, and I didn't go on every trip, but to say it was exhausting is certainly an accurate statement. So I think it's been a good refresher in a way. Just because you do that season in the last summer, and then you go into broadcasting and you're working 4 or 5 nights a week. If you call it work, just the travel more so is the hard part of that. And then you go into the Olympics. So it's kind of been a good way to refresh the batteries, but now I'm to the point where I'm kind of bored. So
Yeah, this has got to be the longest you've been in one place.
Yes.
And
I always
months.
Yeah, that's definitely true. I always kind of laughed when I was in the NBA because guys would talk about how when they retired, a lot of guys can't be with their families because they're not used to being home. They're used to playing road games, or if they work in the front office, they're going on trips and they're scouting and whatnot. And how when that ends, it's kind of like, so it's been different, but I've always liked to fly. It's just I don't like flying 4 and 5 times a week. Right. That can get tiring. But it has been different because you think about even like AAU, like when you were covering us when we were playing for SYF, most weekends we were probably flying in the summer to play somewhere or driving. We weren't home, that's for sure. So, and Wayne Brum was hell bent on winning the Super Showcase and Nationals, so we were going at it a lot into almost early August. So
that's right.
It's been different.
Now, Super Showcase and Nationals, were they both in Florida at the time?
Yeah, they were the 2 tournaments that ran back to back, and we actually won the Showcase both years. So Coach Brum was like, we have to be the first team to ever win both, and we just ran out of gas. There was no way to do it. Like we even stalled a team. This is a hilarious story, but we stalled a team. I remember we were into like the Sweet 16 of Nationals, and we were playing this team from Cincinnati. I didn't know any of their players. They didn't have any people ranked in the top 150 or whatever. And we had, Etwan, Scott, myself, Gary McGee. We were loaded. Like we had a really good AU team. And Coach Brum came to us before the game. And he was like, guys, I just don't think we can win. I don't think we can beat these guys straight up. We're too tired. So we're going to stall. So we literally held the ball. It was 4 quarters, I think 8-minute quarters at Nationals. And we won the tip and held the ball for 8 minutes and hit a 3 at the buzzer to go up 3-0. And parents were throwing stuff on the floor, and it
would have been too.
There was like 10 technicals given out in the game because they got it. Actually was a brilliant move. We won by 30. It was 11-3 at halftime though, and then they just couldn't deal with it. We ended up winning by 30 points.
I think the furthest I ever followed you was Nashville for the Memorial Day Classic that year. You guys beat the Arkansas Wings, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, James Anderson
in the title game. it was at the Ensworth School, Bryson Hopkins' alma mater.
That place is elite. That is an elite high school.
Unbelievable, isn't it?
Yeah, that was a cool place to play.
Unbelievable. So I know this summer you were planning to go overseas for the Olympics. What's your kind of general approach now? I know you were kind of looking forward to kind of closing that chapter to a certain extent. Are you still kind of all in for next summer?
Yeah, I mean, we've made it this far, so
Right.
there's no sense in giving up now.
Yeah.
In a way, it's kind of disappointing because it's like, I was really looking forward to this year being the only year where I would try to train for an Olympic sport and work a full television schedule. But again, like my mom and I were talking when it first came out, when it was first postponed, she was like, if that's the worst of your problems, you're probably in not that bad of shape. So it was a lot to take on, but I really enjoy playing basketball still. I think there's some things in 3-on-3 that are frustrating, whether that's the crazy travel to play in places like China and South Korea and Japan and even Malaysia or wherever we're going, or also the officiating or whatever. But at the end of the day, it's still really fun. I enjoy the guys that I play with, and it's a chance to win a gold medal. I got to do some of the promotional stuff for the Olympics in November, and it was really cool because it was out here in LA. It was actually, the studio was like 3 blocks away from where my girlfriend's apartment is. I had no idea this place was even there. I walk by it all the time. And it was just cool to go through the whole thing. And I've been through NBA media days, and I've done the whole deal at Purdue when we were doing that stuff. But, you're seeing people who are like legitimate Olympic athletes who are really good also
Right.
there. And it's like going through the entire process would be an incredible life experience.
So do you have to keep playing in all the tournaments overseas, or is your stature in the sport now to the point where you can stay in the States next year for your training and whatnot?
So
you have
right
to keep
now,
earning your place?
you earn points by doing well in events. So like,
Right.
and it's kind of like a tennis setup where you play in challengers, and challengers get you into masters, and masters are more money and they're more points. So right now, all the points are frozen. But there's been rumblings that FIBA is going to try in August or September, October to play kind of a modified schedule. So once that starts, you still got to play to keep your standing. And I think with the Olympics, your team has to take 2 guys from the top 10 of your country's rankings, and then the other 2 can be any 2. So it definitely pays to be in the top 10.
Right. How's your TV career going? I think I speak for everybody when I say you're pretty good at it and you're getting better. Are you getting pretty comfortable there? I mean, do you feel like you've kind of found your place?
Yeah, I really enjoy it. And I've gotten to work with really good people. I think you look at whether that's Big Ten Network or ESPN. I've been very fortunate to work with people that are really good. Like Kevin Kugler is doing the NFC Championship game for Westwood One, and he's doing the national championship for Westwood One. He's a stud. Brandon Gaughan is really good. And then you look at ESPN, same thing. Like Benetti, I think Jason Benetti could maybe call.
He's awesome.
He could be Monday Night Football at some point.
Awesome.
He's that good. So I've gotten to work with really good people, which really helps.
Right.
But I do think that I'm still getting better. And I think that it's something that I can be really good at. So it's given me something kind of new to work for. I think that's what players struggle with when you get done playing. Like, what you've been working towards this your whole life, what are you working towards now?
Yeah.
And this keeps me in basketball. I love being at the games. I love being in the atmosphere. I love the game. So it's really the best job for me. And honestly, you get the summers off. So it's a great job in that sense.
Right. I'm actually glad you brought up Jason Benetti. He's really good, and he seems like the coolest dude.
Yeah, we have a great time. He's like an encyclopedia, like movies, music, sports. He is so intelligent, but he's funny, and this is a stupid example. This is a good example. We're doing an Iowa game last year. They were playing Ohio State, and Bakari Evelyn, the kid that went to Nebraska and then transferred to Valpo and then transferred to Iowa this year as a grad transfer, he was having a really good game, and you might not even know this song, but there's a song called "Where the Party At" by Jagged Edge that was really popular in the late 90s, early 2000s.
I know a lot of songs, but you got me there.
Yeah, it's like Nelly's on it, and it was my era of growing up, I think. But there's a line that says "Where the Party At," and then it goes on, and it goes on to it talks about Bacardi, like the the liquor.
Okay.
And he drops this line like, "Where the Bacardi at?" And I looked and I was like, "Did you just quote Jagged Edge?" Like, and that's like, you know, only people that probably grew up in the same time frame that him and I did. So I think we're only like 4 or 5 years apart.
Mm-hmm.
Would even know what that was. But I was like, dude, you just quoted Jagged Edge on an ESPN broadcast of a Big Ten basketball game. Like, he's really, really sharp.
One last TV question for you. What should I be doing with my hands when I do this? I'm really new to this. I have no idea. I'm kind of doing the Mr. Burns thing.
Yeah, it's hard. I think, you know, you could put them at your side. There's no good answer for that. I struggle with that in the opens. When you're on camera and it's like, should you be – it could be distracting if you're doing this. It's like the Ron Burgundy thing.
Yeah.
It really can be.
Yeah. Well, I kind of speak with my hands too a lot, so I'm always doing this. And YouTube always catches me like this.
Right.
On the screen cap. Hey, to talk about much more important things here real quick, I guess this isn't all that important necessarily in the grand scheme of things, but obviously the NCAA is moving towards some changes here. I wanted to get your thoughts on the name, image, likeness changes. I said on our podcast a couple of years ago, you would have been the poster boy for it because people would have bought sneakers from you and people would have bought minivans from you. If you were in college, take that as a compliment.
I do.
If you were in college, how would that have affected you in light of also the kind of level of prominence you were able to achieve?
Yeah, I mean, I certainly could have used the money. There's no doubt about that. And not that, you know, I was very fortunate that my parents had good jobs and were always able to provide whatever we really needed or wanted. So I mean, it wasn't like that, but it's certainly for a college kid. I certainly could have used the extra cash. I think some of it to me was frustrating in the sense of like, you know, you look out in the crowd and there's a bunch of 33 jerseys, or there's a bunch of 25 or 4. It's like, that's my jersey. That's Etwan Moore's jersey. That's Juwan Johnson's jersey. And we don't, you know, just to say that you didn't get anything from it. I mean, they weren't selling those just out of a magical lottery of numbers. Like, there's a reason those numbers were picked. So like that was kind of frustrating, but I also understood that there was kids that were going to school that were accumulating $100,000 worth of student loans. So I realized that. I think that when it starts to get kind of confusing is when you see the numbers on the contracts of the NCAA tournament. You see the type of revenue that's coming in for those types of events, or even like the Big Ten Network money that each school gets. There's a lot of money to be at stake. So it's like, why do you care as long as it's not totally egregious? Why do you care if some kid can get a car deal? Like, what is that changing? And I do realize that some of these issues bring about other issues. We're like, all right, if we're going to pay the players, is that money now taxable? Is your scholarship now taxable? You know, that's certainly an issue. But you could have, if they do it where you have your scholarship and that's what it is, and then on the side, you can make any taxable income, who cares? If you don't want your Big Ten championship ring, you know, the Ohio State thing, sell them. I would never sell mine. Like, those mean something to me.
Right.
But I do think that, you know, if you're in a crunch for money or you don't really care about it, by all means, you know, put it up for sale. I guess from like an autograph standpoint, some of those kids can make money in their respective college towns, but I just don't know how much there's going to be. Like Carson Edwards would have cleaned up last year, right? He would have probably been, or Zion Williamson, he would have been like, you know, national ads because he was that type of a guy who could really bring ratings, and people are, you know, with as explosive as he is, they really are drawn to him. So, but like, is the seventh man on the team going to be bringing in any endorsements? Maybe an autograph signing here or there, but I don't see him getting a car or getting a deal like that. So it certainly could have helped. I do kind of like wonder, you know, if let's say I was making $150,000 in endorsement. That might be an egregious number, but what would I be buying it on? Would I be rolling around Purdue's campus and like a Lexus and like going to Brothers and like having $1,000 bar tabs on Friday? Maybe. I don't know. I was 20 or 21. I could have been doing some stupid stuff like that.
Right.
So it's, in a way, I'm like, you know, maybe it's good. And it would have, you know, it would have been nice is if you could have done it and had the money put into like a money market account. Mm-hmm. And then when you're 30 and need the money, or, you know, could invest it or whatever you want to do with it. Hey, here you go. Thanks for your time. But I could see 21-year-old Rob doing some really stupid stuff. So.
Well, if I recall correctly, as soon as you got done, I remember there was an autograph signing you did. Some people came to you to establish a partnership for you to promote their businesses. What do you think a typical, high-end college basketball player's brand is worth to people, you think? Do you have any sort of sense on that?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think it depends on what your market is. What is a school like, let's say Minnesota? Because I've lived there, and I understand that, the Gophers are cool, but that's a pro sports town. That's the Vikings, that's the Twins, the Timberwolves when they're not terrible, which is when I was there. But Minnesota's that's different than West Lafayette. That's a very different market. So I think you have to look at kind of what type of place you're in. Purdue's interesting because you're in between Chicago and you're in between Indianapolis, but you're also a college town that's pretty much there because of Purdue. So I look at I had a deal with Granite Management when I came out of college. I was on those buses.
Banana.
Yeah, with the banana.
Still haunts my dreams.
My friends would just
Bob Hummel with that big banana on the side of the bus.
Exactly, yeah. But that was a good deal for when I was coming out of school. It was legitimate money, and I'd do it again. I'd do it again now. If they wanted to have me, I'd go back and do it. So I think that there is money to be made. And I do think that in a town like West Lafayette, you can certainly sell it, especially because it's such a basketball-rich state. And the tradition at Purdue is that, Mackey is a great environment. And people care. Right. It's not like some of the schools where, when you go out west, is Arizona State, how are you going to market anybody? No one cares out there. Nobody goes to the games. They have so much to do. When I was getting recruited by Herb Sendak, he was at NC State. And then he left. He was sick of recruiting against Carolina and Duke. And he goes to Arizona State. And I remember he told me, before the games, the frats have pool parties out here. He didn't tell me that the frats don't ever come to the games. That never made it in. They have pool parties. They're not going to the basketball games afterwards, though. But there's a lot going on out there. So I think it varies from city to city.
Right. Hey, a quick question for you, since you mentioned your time with the Timberwolves. The NBA nowadays has become such an important part of recruiting. It's become such an important part of guys' decision making throughout their careers. A player comes to you and says, "Hey, what does it take to play in the NBA? What do I need to do to play in the NBA other than be good enough?" What would you tell them about the NBA?
I mean, it's just this always stood out to me when I was there. Ronnie Turioff would always say this to me, and he'd always be like, "Robbie, you know what the NBA stands for?" The first time I was like, "No." It's no boys allowed. No little kids are allowed in this league. And that is so true. Look at a G League roster. And Kalen Lucas is the perfect example. Kalen Lucas was really, really good at Michigan State. And I think he's played in 10 NBA games. He's gotten 2 10-day contracts. And he's been in the G League or overseas for the rest of his career. Think about how good Kalen Lucas was. He's a Big Ten Player of the Year. He's incredibly quick. Now, he doesn't have maybe the size that they are looking for at the point position at that level, but he's a really good player. Go through any G League roster, and it's good college player, good college player, good college player. Every person that plays in the National Basketball Association is an all-conference or better player, or just a freak potential-wise, like a Zach LaVine, where somehow he's not starting ahead of Bryce Alford, but then gets picked 9th because he's got a 50-inch vertical jump and he's super gifted. It's just the level of play is so high. And if you're going to make it, you better – it's for me, I kind of struggled because I was good at a lot of things, but I wasn't great at any one thing. I'm not a great three-point shooter. I wish I was. I'd probably maybe still be playing. But you look at a guy like a Kyle Korver. He's not a great athlete, but he's an elite shooter. He can really make shots. So if you can find one thing that you're great at that level and it can help a team, you can certainly make it. But if you're averaging 3 points and 3 rebounds, good luck. Good luck making it in Europe. I think about some of the guys I've played with throughout my life that have played overseas, and there's guys that have played over there for a couple grand a month. They were good players. So I just think that guys don't understand. You have it really good at school, and yes, there's something to be said about you start making money and you start providing for yourself and your family, but man, I really wish that guys could understand what it's like, in Spain when you land and you go through your first workout and the trainer comes over to you and he goes, Robbie, what do you need? I'm like, can I get 2 bags of ice? And he laughed and he literally pointed at the ice machine and said, well, it's over there. Bags are there. And he goes, we don't have any wrap. So you better hold those things on your knees. We had Mercury uniforms. Mercury is a boat engine to me. Like I've never heard of Mercury, the sportswear apparel. So, or me and William Buford are putting the baskets up and taking them down every day because we're sharing the gym with the indoor soccer team. It's a different deal. And yes, it was great to finally make some money, but I wish that you could make these kids understand that it's not always maybe what you think it is.
When you say Mercury, you mean the element or you mean the color?
No, the brand. Like,
oh,
Mercury,
okay.
like
None of the above.
My parents' my dad's grandfather built this lake house, and we have a boat up there that's in Minnesota. It's like, I wish that we'd sink it. Like, it's like literally it was state of the art in 1954, and it's got a 10 horse. It's a Mercury engine. So that's what I thought of when I saw Mercury. That's what our jerseys were.
I got you. A few years ago, I went to Indy when Etuan, whatever, I can't remember exactly which team he was playing for at the time, played the Pacers, and to do a story on Etuan, and I talked to 3 of his teammates, asked them all what's made Etuan successful in the NBA, and they all said professionalism. First of all, he's a professional.
Sure.
What does professionalism mean, I guess, at the NBA level?
It means you bring it every day. It means you have a good idea of what you're supposed to do. Etuan could sit on the bench for 15 games, and this year he did some, like where he didn't get in they were trying to play those young guys. Then you have injuries, and all of a sudden you have to play.
Right.
And I guarantee you, Etuan Moore every day after practice was doing extra cardio, was playing 2-on-2, was getting extra shots up because he understands, there's too much that can happen in an NBA season. There's too many injuries. There's too many suspensions. There's too many wild cards where it's like, well, each one has to play tonight.
Right.
And just because you haven't played in 2 weeks doesn't mean you can go in there and play like crap. That's right. It's a one-way ticket out of the NBA.
Right.
So he's a guy that he'll do that. He'll work hard. He'll do whatever he'll guard the other team's best player. He'll shoot open shots. He'll make the right play every time. And to me, that's the biggest credit to him because he wasn't always like that. You saw him play in high school.
Yeah, right.
He was built to score, and that's what he was good at. And he should have. Like, that's what he was in our AAU team, and that's what he was, I think, early at Purdue until Coach Painter kind of got through to him that, hey, there's other guys that can help you out here. And he's found that the best way to make a lot of money and stay in the NBA is to just make the right play every time, and that's what he does. So I think he's the consummate professional. I'm so proud of him for his NBA career. Because you get picked 55th, it's no sure thing. The second round is kind of a free for all. I think him and I are both very fortunate that getting picked that late, we actually got to play in the league. And he's done a lot better job than I did. But it's hard as a second round pick. You got to make the team.
Right. Hey, I don't want to take up too much of your time here. I know we all have important couches to sit on.
Call of Duty play.
I did want to talk to you a little bit about the Big Ten and Purdue next season. Just when you kind of look at the Big Ten, I know there's some NBA decisions still out there to be made, but who jumps out to you next year as kind of the teams that on paper seem like the best?
Right. Yeah, I guess I haven't thought about it a ton, but Iowa, if Gardner comes back and Wieskamp is there, and I think their roster is built to be really good. Bohannon's a question mark because you wonder about how healthy he'll be, but you're getting a guy that's probably going to be one of the best bigs in college basketball and definitely the best big in the league. Michigan State will be interesting, I think, with the Langford situation, if he can come back. Trying to think who I'm leaving out here. A lot of turnover. There's a lot of guys that have left the league. It's gonna be a different deal. You think about all the good bigs last year, and some of those guys have moved on to the NBA or graduation, but I haven't actually thought about it a whole lot. I guess maybe I need to start prepping up on that stuff. But it will definitely be interesting. I feel bad for teams like Rutgers and Penn State, and Rutgers could be pretty good again this next year. They bring almost everybody back, but you finally get over the hump and make the tournament. And the tournament doesn't happen.
Right. So. I tell you, who'll be interesting this year is Wisconsin. Like they just won the league. They bring back everybody. but I don't know how good they actually were. They just found a way.
Like, this is a credit to Greg Gard and all those players, but I have no idea how they won the Big Ten. I watched them play in late December or early December. They were at NC State in the Big Ten AC tournament. I had them against Indiana the next game they had. They were so bad in that Brooklyn deal and then at NC State. I would have said they're not going to finish in the top 10 in the league. I mean, they have no chance. And to win the Big Ten last year is an incredible feat for them. So it will be interesting because I'm not sure how good their personnel is.
Right.
I mean, think about how bad they were at Mackey. That was interesting display. I mean, they could not shoot on the road. You win the Big Ten, you can't make a shot in a road game. That's pretty amazing.
That was the Big Ten last year, too, to a certain extent. What about Purdue? I mean, just what you saw from Purdue this season, kind of moving forward, do you expect the guard play to be better? You know, just what are your thoughts kind of on Purdue at this point?
Yeah, I think, disappointing to lose Matt and Nogel in some interesting situations there. But I think you have to look at who's coming in and who's coming back. I think Sasha Stefanovic has shown that consistency is a big thing with him. On the road, he's just hasn't been able to make shots like he has in Mackey. I think Eric Hunter's got a chance to be a really good player in the Big Ten. I think he really made some strides last year. The freshmen are going to get an opportunity to play a lot, and everything that I've heard is incredibly positive about both those guards. So between Ivy and Morton, I think those guys have a chance to be really, really good players. Just from what I've heard, I've never seen them play in person, but I know that with Ethan Morton, a lot of those guys in 3-on-3 have really been high on him. They've really talked about what a playmaker and a passer he is, and how good he'll be with Coach Payne. So that's certainly very encouraging. But even for freshmen, I think it's always interesting that it doesn't always click right away, and that's okay. There's some guys that it just takes a while to kind of figure it out. I think Juwan Johnson's a good example of that. That was a strength thing. But you're going through stuff that like you've never gone through in your life from a physical standpoint. I remember Etuan our freshman year, we did 5 weeks of conditioning. We did Coach Katie's old, and this got modified like every year. I think Coach Payne kind of toned it down. But the first year we did 2 weeks of distance conditioning. We did 2 weeks of stadium stairs and 220s in Lambert, and we did 2 weeks on the court with the 3.5s, which is 3.5 down and backs, and 7 down and backs. And those are like, I remember by the end, Etuan looked like he was running in quicksand all the time. Like, because when have you ever done that? Like, you're in incredible shape, but your body is also like kind of screaming at you. So it's always interesting to see how guys kind of adjust to that. And then the front court, I think, is the big question for Purdue.
Yeah.
You lose Boudreau, you lose Matt. Trevion's a very proven, I think, commodity, but you also wonder what kind of shape he's going to come back in, and can he play 30-plus minutes a game? I think there's kind of a question mark of who's going to be the backup bigs.
Right. What does leadership mean to you as a player? That's going to be a question for Purdue kind of moving forward, is establishing leadership.
Right.
Through your playing experience both at college and NBA levels, what does leadership look like? How do you kind of define it?
I think it's kind of different for everybody, and The Last Dance is a good example of that. Michael Jordan led a certain way, and it was certainly very successful, while Steph Curry doesn't do that. Like, Steph Curry is not talking to his teammates in the way that Michael Jordan was.
Right.
To me, I early on at Purdue thought, I don't have the maybe clout to do it from a vocal perspective. And I'm not the most vocal leader ever. Now, I grew into that more at Purdue, but early it was just like, I'm going to work as hard as I can. I'm going to try to win every scrimmage I play in. I'm going to try to win every drill. And I think that that's going to kind of be the way that I lead by example. And then as you start to have some success, now you can put more demands on people. And in my 5th year, I think I was the most vocal I probably ever have been in my life, partly because I was frustrated because I was playing like shit, and partly because we were kind of struggling. So, but I thought that team had potential, and we certainly did. And some weird things happened with some of our players. And by the end of the year, we were playing actually pretty good. But I think it kind of depends on who you got. Like, I didn't need to yell at Etuan more. What am I going to, he knows what he needs to do. Juwan Johnson, the same thing. Chris Kramer, Keaton Grant, Lewis Jack, like, who are you going to yell at, Like, you got a group of guys who are super mature, really understand what they need to do to be successful, understand the roles. There wasn't much in that. Now you get into that 5th year where you got Anthony Johnson, some other guys, where it's like, okay, some roles need to be set. And that was Coach Painter always did a really good job at doing that. But sometimes that message didn't always get through to some of those guys in that fifth-year team.
Right. One last question for you. I know the last couple of weeks were pretty special for you watching Last Dance. What was your favorite part of it?
Anything behind the scenes. Yeah. I think the one complaint I would have, now I'm as big of a Jordan fan as anybody. Like, I grew up, it was Michael Jordan was my guy. Mm-hmm. They talked about how they had 500 hours of footage from the 98 season. And I think we saw an hour of it. Maybe not even that. Like, the stuff that was my favorite was Jordan in the locker, swinging a bat, smoking a cigar, like, or at practice, yelling at Ron Harper, yelling at Tony Kukoc. Like, that's the stuff that I'm really interested in. And that's the stuff, or even like in the locker room in those Paris exhibitions where you're getting to actually see him interact with his teammates and his coaches. And like, I think it's fascinating too to hear him interviewed now, kind of hear what his perspective is today.
Right.
But I was hoping, like, even last night when I watched that Game 6 from 98, I was hoping that, like, at halftime they had the cameras in there, and in the huddles they would be in there in timeouts. And in some of them they were, but that would be my one complaint. I just think the behind-the-scenes stuff is so cool. Like, that's fascinating because I've been in an NBA locker room. My first year we were good enough to make the playoffs in the East, but unfortunately the West was loaded, so we didn't make it. And then my second year we absolutely sucked. So we didn't have a chance that year. But I think it's interesting to see, what does an elite team look like? Because I didn't – that's the one regret I have. I didn't get to play on like a playoff team in the NBA. I would have been really interested to see what is the dynamic like? What's it – and with Jordan, it's fascinating because, like, he's a guy that the stories about him going out and playing, 36 holes of golf and then rolling to the stadium and playing in a playoff game are like, that's legendary, or doing the dream team stuff or whatever. Like, I wish that there was more of that, but at the end of the day, it was still really entertaining and it was really good television, but I wish it was more of the behind the scenes. So that was my favorite part.
Yeah, I got you. I was just curious that obviously the world has kind of revolved around that documentary because there's been nothing else.
Right.
So I'm sure for people who grew up with those teams, especially those as invested as you are, I'm sure it's been pretty cool reliving.
I think too with Jordan, like, and you kind of get this with Tiger Woods maybe as well, like, especially when you're growing up and you're a kid and you're watching these guys on television, you just look at them differently.
Yeah, no question.
And like, I got to meet Jordan once, and it literally incapacitated me for the night. Like, I couldn't. I was with my friends in Vegas. I couldn't gamble. I was like, I felt like one of those like 10-year-old girls screaming at the Beatles, that my mom showed me on those movies that she has. But he's just a larger than life figure. And I think Tiger is the only other guy that I would probably feel like that about. But he's like almost mythical,
Right. For those who might not know the story, you were in Vegas, right? And you were in a VIP room.
No, it wasn't even that. Like, so we were going out there, and I knew he was there because my dad's former tennis teammate from Illinois manages all these like baseball players. He manages their money, and he was trying to get me to sign with them. And he had this guy in Vegas. He was like, we'll hook you up with a weekend, and we'll get you some suites, and you and your buddies can go out there and have a good time. So this guy runs Jordan's golf tournament at the Aria. So initially I thought I was going to get to play golf with him. And I was like, this is incredibly horrible for my checkbook, but it will be awesome. Like, it'll be an incredible experience. And that kind of fell through. So I knew he was there. I knew he was at the Aria, but we were there, and like 5 of us were walking. In the Aria, there's this like orange bar. Like, it's like an orange stained glass window, and you can see it from the casino. And we're walking by it, and it looks like it might be like a high roller area, but it's really not. Like, anybody can walk in there. And the Blackhawks were playing a playoff game, so it was in May. And Alex Borst, who's one of my best friends, he's behind us, and he runs up. And he's like, guys, don't make fun of me if I'm wrong, but I swear to God, Michael Jordan is sitting in that bar. And if you know our group of friends, people were like crushing Alex. Like, there's no way that Jordan is sitting at the bar. Yeah, MJ at the bar, sure. So we all loop around. I'll never forget this. Chris Reed is such an idiot. He's all 6'9" of him. He runs into this like lounge. He's like hiding behind a chair, like trying to like get a peek at Michael Jordan. And I hear him talk, and I'm like, dude, that is Michael Jordan. That's crazy. So we kind of like huddled up, and I was like, all right, do I go talk to him? I've been drafted. I played with Jeffrey both years at the Nike All-American. We were on the same team. He rolled up in a Bentley outside of NIFS, which is the National Institute of Fitness and Sport in Indianapolis.
APY, yeah.
Parked it on the curb, this green Bentley, and he watched every one of our games. So I was like, I played with Jeffrey twice. I played against Jeffrey at Illinois. Jeffrey and I, he actually texted me when I hurt my knee the first time. So like at the worst, I could be like, hey, how's Jeffrey doing? Like I have a legit reason. I know a family member, right? But the downside was if he treats me poorly, which he could, it would legitimately break my soul. Like I would be so upset. So eventually I was like, dude, when are you ever going to see Michael Jordan again? Go talk to him. I went up to him and he was super cool. Like, he was so cool. And we talked for like 4 or 5 minutes. And I was trying not to like, do anything stupid or embarrass myself. But he was sitting there with 2 guys. I'm sure one of them was a bodyguard or something. They were just watching the Hawks game. But he asked me about my knee. He asked me where I played last year. He knew I'd been drafted. But yeah, I was totally like incapacitated. Could not gamble, couldn't drink, couldn't have fun, couldn't do anything. I was literally just, I was in like a Zen place, just chilling with my friends. It was really cool.
Now he recognized you, right?
Yeah, no,
Robbie Hummel, my man. That was the quote.
Yeah, I walked up to him and I go, Mr. Jordan, I'd like to introduce myself to you. And he goes, Robbie Hummel, my man, what's going on? And I was like, I almost fainted. Like my heart was beating so fast. It was like I was running the mile. Like I was so nervous. So thank God he was cool and nice, and it was a really cool experience.
I'm so glad I asked that last question. That was really good.
No, it was cool. And I have to thank my man Boris. we would have just walked by. He happened to look in and see Michael, and we made fun of him so bad. Like, I wish that we could take that back, because like the minute after he said that, we were clowning him. I'll never forget Reed, like literally crawling on the floor in this lounge, trying to get a look. Chris Reed is one of the funniest teammates I think I've ever had. He's insane.
It's funny. Rob, I can't think of anything else to ask you. As I said, I'm really glad I asked that last question. I can't top it. So thank you so much for your time, as always.
Of course.
Take care of yourself. Be safe. And we'll be talking to you.
Thanks, Brian. Appreciate it. You too.